what designed as a replica? Yes. Yeah. One of our companies in Vietnam, Seagull models that we work with, made some. We never marketed them, but yeah, I do have a couple of them. I have one in my Hangar 9 Tiger Moth. I think it's kind of cool. I could say, but it would all be bleeped out. Yeah. That's a good question. It's actually 4 questions. I think the best answer is yes, no, perhaps, and 2029. Yeah, TOC stands for Tournament of Champions, and it was a contest that started when I was a little kid. There was a guy named Bill Bennett who owned the Circus Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada, in USA. And he was also a big RC buff, and he was very fortunate in his business life and made a lot of money, and wanted to kind of give back to the hobby and create a contest that was kind of the absolute premier. And it became an invitation-only contest where he'd invite the best 10 American pilots, aerobatic pilots, and the best 10 non-American from around the world that they'd identify mostly through F3A competition, and they'd come and they'd compete with unique, flying their pattern airplanes initially, but with unique patterns for decent prize money. And the contest grew, and you know, it was an annual thing. And they eventually changed it from the pattern airplanes to what is now we would call an IMAC airplane or TOC airplane. They're scale aerobatic planes, and became much bigger because of the rules that he put in place. His rules are always very challenging. He said, okay, we flew pattern airplanes last year, it's going to be scale airplanes this year, good luck figure out how to make them fly. And then it was, okay, you made those fly good, now they've got to be 4 times bigger than they were. And it was, so he always pushed us, and we'd get the rules and go, are you kidding me? It's like, but you know, it really opened things up, and I think in a lot of ways led to where we are today with giant scale. We've got, you know, great giant scale engines, big, you know, 170cc, 200cc engines, that really, their roots, they wouldn't have come to be if it wasn't for the TOC and all of these airplane designs. So that's what it was. It just continued to go, and it was an annual contest. A couple times it went every other year. I was lucky enough to be in it for the last 9, from 1992 to 2002 was the last one, when unfortunately Mr. Bennett passed away shortly after that one, and the contest ended. But it was a very fond memory, something I'm very proud to have been part of for a number of years. Met a lot of friends. It's kind of interesting because there were guys that it was a very serious contest. Other guys that a lot of them I didn't really talk to too much at the contest, and they didn't talk to me. We were very focused on what we were doing, but now they're some of my best friends. You know, we just get together and we fly. And actually, I'm fortunate enough to even work with a few of them. Peter Goldsmith came to work for us several years ago now. And Kike Somanzini works for us also, and guys that I first knew through the TOC. First aircraft at the TOC was a Staudacher S300. It was in 1992. Dick Hansen, who some people, I'm sure a lot of people know Dick's name. He's kind of a prolific designer for pattern airplanes and some giant scale designs. And I'd always known him. He was actually a member in a local club when I was a kid. He was one of the reasons I got into competition aerobatics, because he was flying pattern. I saw it and I thought, wow, that's cool. So I called him. He had moved away to Salt Lake City, and said, I know you've designed some planes for guys who actually have won. He built some planes for Steve Rojecki, who won the TOC, and said, what can we do? And he kind of came up with the Staudacher idea, so that was my first one. First music choice, that's interesting, and music evolved so much from when I started to where it is today is where I wanted to be then. My first music choice was a Def Leppard song. I thought it was a really good idea, and my caller said, that's a really stupid idea, because all the judges are much older than us, so we really got to play to their taste because we're, at the end of the day, we're flying for the judges. So I ended up using Glenn Miller music. I flew to In the Mood in my first TOC. And then it kind of progressed from there. I actually have a funny story. My second to last TOC was one I did very well. I made the finals, and I flew to the Nutcracker, which was still a ballet kind of thing. But at the end of the flight, it transitioned to Queen's "We Will Rock You," which really, I just used the end part, which has a really cool guitar riff and a really cool beat. And I thought it was great. And I was kind of the first one there to really use kind of modern rock and roll music. And after I landed, I heard that Mr. Bennett went up to the people at the music and said, "Turn that bleeping music down," as soon as that part came in. So maybe he wasn't ready for the rock and roll, but I was. And it's kind of cool today because you see all the young guys flying XFC, and they're all flying to really cool music and fun stuff. And yeah, so that's kind of the progression of my music for TOC. Is this one coming from a friend of mine?
Could be. It's coming from offshore.
Yes. I can describe this was a terrifying experience. It was at TOC, which we just talked about, the last one, and we'd practiced all week out in the lake bed. That's in there's a lot of lake beds outside Vegas, and we went. My buddy Peter Goldsmith, who probably sent this, and we practiced all week. Had a great week of practice, and it was the evening we had to go into Vegas, process our models, and the contest started the next day. So we go cruising across the lake bed, which you do. I was in a big van, had 2 TOC models and 4 people in it, and it had rained a lot about 3 weeks prior. And normally rain, apparently it'll erode some spots in the desert and pool. By the time we get to where we can see it, it's water. Then we realize it's a divot. It was too late to brake, so I thought, well, I'm just going to punch it and go for it. And we essentially launched the van, hit the other side. It hit pretty hard, but we made it. My TOC models all kind of jumped up to the ceiling, I believe. So we stopped, like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And we're all okay first. Are you guys, anybody dead? No, we actually lived. And we open up the van, and my primary model had damage to the fin. Fortunately, my caller, who was also my builder, a guy named Brian Huffmeyer, who a lot of people have heard of, and Brian said, I can fix it, don't worry about it. So he jumps in the back of the van, we start driving to Vegas. We had to process the models. It was about a 45-minute drive. And I'm just heartbroken because I'd had a great week. Practice was going great. My model just got broke. Brian's back, don't worry about it. By the time we get there, Brian's like, I got it fixed, just got to run to the room, plug in an iron, and put Ultracoat back on the fin. And he comes back down 20 minutes later, and the plane was perfect. So it worked out great. Terrified me. I thought I'd killed all of us for a minute. This thing was actually about 3 or 4 feet deep, so we hit it pretty fast to jump a big extended van all the way over it. Yeah, thanks, Peter. That's a good question. Through those years, I practiced very hard. Probably flew in the summer months. Probably flew 5 days a week, 6 days a week. Hard practice. Also did it because I love to fly every day anyway. How much money did I spend? Never kept track. Wouldn't want to know. I'd probably cry a lot if I knew the answer to that question. That's a good question because we've done so many projects, and they're all my favorite when I'm doing them. There's been a lot of different ones. The Pulse projects are some of my favorites because they're very popular and they're kind of every man's airplane, which is kind of weird. Probably a weird answer because I've done so many high-end airplanes and I love a lot of those. But it's kind of neat to come out with something that you get so many people coming back. So I've got your Pulse in this size or that size, and I love it. That's very rewarding. On the high end, the Sukhoi projects that I did, especially the 3.1 meter. I did kind of at the very end of my competition career, and I just love the way that airplane flies. And it's smaller. Its little brother, the 85cc, is much the same design, just reduced. And that's probably my favorite aerobatic design. I think it's probably my best work for the high-end modeler. All of them are very rewarding. What advice? Take your time, have fun, learn how to set airplanes up. It's very good advice, I think. Setting an airplane up properly allows you to really enjoy how they fly, and you'll get a lot more out of the hobby, and you'll go a lot farther. What radio? I'd have to ask a question back before I'd answer that. How far do you want to go with this, and how much money do you want to spend? If you want to, kind of dip your toe in the water, so to speak, something like a Spectrum DX4E is great, or a DX5E. If you think you're going to be in it for a while, and you want to go farther, get a DX6i or even the DX7S or 8. That really depends on how far you think you're going to go with it. I think if you really get into it, you're going to end up with a DX18 eventually. So if you're that sure, just jump right in with a DX18. Since I don't compete anymore, I don't practice that much. I fly for fun. I never did use a sim that much for competition. When I started in competition, there was no such thing, and it would have been great. What I really did use them for, kind of in the early days as I was learning new things, was stick movements. Things that are difficult, that you really have to develop muscle memory and develop just how the inputs. Things like rolling circles and Harrier rolls and that kind of thing. Sims are fantastic for. And I would use them for that, to get the stick movements down, and then I would go to the flying field and fly and kind of put the polish on the maneuver and finish it off. But that did save a lot of time, a lot of fuel, and probably a few airplanes too.